It's not known exactly when Olga was born, but it's said that she is of Varangian origin and born in the city of Pleskov. Not much is known about her life before marrying the Prince Igor of the Rurik dynasty, who was having a tough time trying to get people to pay their tributes that they had been paying to his predecessors. One of these groups were called the Drevlians. The Drevlians were a tribe that, for a time, had been allied with the Kievan Rus. They had fought battles alongside each other and everything, but ever since Igor took power, they had stopped paying their taxes, basically. So Igor thought, you know what? I'm gonna go make these dastardly Drevlians give me my money. So Igor got his army together and marched into the lands of the Drevlians, where he did just that. He forced them into paying tribute, and he and his army headed on home. Except that Igor felt like what he had gotten from the Drevlians, it wasn't quite enough, and he wanted more. So, he heads back into Drevlian territory, but this time with only a small group of men accompanying him. And, this time when they found the Drevlians, they captured Igor and killed his men, and then the story goes that they tied him between two trees that were bent towards the ground and held in place by rope. As it said, or sorry, then it said he was torn in two. So I'm guessing they just released both ends of the trees, and yeah, they literally just tore him apart. Well, after Olga found out about her husband's death, she assumed the throne that he had left behind since her son was too young to be king. And the Drevlians, in their arrogance, came to Olga, about 20 Drevlian messengers, and they were like, yo, what's up? We kind of just murdered your husband and everything, but it'd kind of be really cool if you came and married our leader, Prince Maul. He's way cuter than Igor was, anyways, like, come on. And in response, Olga said, your proposal is pleasing to me. Indeed, my husband cannot rise again from the dead. But I desire to honor you tomorrow in the presence of my people. Return now to your boats, and remain there with an aspect of arrogance. I shall send for you on the morrow, and you shall say, we will not ride on our horses, nor go on foot. Carry us in our boat, and you shall be carried in your boat. So, off the messengers go for the night, and the next day, when they return, they do what Olga said. They do what Olga wanted them to. And when they did, the people of Kiev listened and lifted the Drevlians inside their boats and carried them into the city. Now the Drevlians, they must be thinking like, wow, they're really treating us with honor. Until the mob of people carrying them turned a corner, and the Drevlian messengers were met with a huge pit that was dug the day before on the orders of Olga, who then had her people drop the men and their boats into this trench and ordered that they be buried alive. And while this was happening, it said that she knelt down beside the trench and asked the Drevlian men whether they found this honor to their tastes. Now, Olga's a bad bitch. I mean, that's pretty savage. To watch men be buried alive and ask them, do you like this? But Olga is not done with those Drevlians yet. Also, quick side note, I'm just pretty sure she had the boats buried alongside the men because she was just hiding all the evidence of those guys ever being there, so that the Drevlians wouldn't know that she was actually against them. Olga then sent a message of her own, telling the Drevlians that she wanted the most distinguished and high-ranking men of the Drevlians to come to her, so that they could meet her and bring her back to their prince in style, I guess. So, all the fancy pants guys from the Drevlian tribe show up to meet with Olga because they have no idea about what happened to the first group of guys. Olga then tells the men that they should enjoy a nice hot bath because you're dirty as hell and nasty, and that her servants have already prepared the bathhouse for them, and to go enjoy a nice hot soak in the tub, and that they'll meet after they have bathed themselves These men then willingly walked into their own deathbeds, or their own tombs, as you could say, because as soon as the men walked inside, Olga commanded her people to light the entire bathhouse on fire, and with the doors being set alight first and then barred, every man who had entered that bathhouse burned alive. And now you may think that Olga has had enough, that she has quenched her thirst for revenge, but oh no, not yet. She then proceeded to send another message to the Drevlians that they should begin to prepare large quantities of mead, aka beer, in the city which they had killed her husband, so that she could come and hold a funeral feast there, which she actually indeed did do. With a small group of her followers, she wept at Igor's tomb and then held a feast in his honor. And then from what I've gathered, there's not much on this, but from what I've gathered, it seems that at some point in the night, she orders her followers to kill the drunken Drevlians who had come to attend the feast and the funeral, and it said on that night, 5,000 of them, of the Drevlians, were massacred. But now, the Drevlians, they definitely know what's up. And Olga heads home to gather her forces so that she may return and finish off the remaining Drevlians locked up inside their city. And after a little bit of an initial battle, little skirmish, that Olga and the Kiev Rus won handedly, they drove back the survivors to their city, where she put them under siege. And for an entire year, she lay in wait until she came up with a clever plan. Why do you persist in holding out? All your cities have surrendered to me and submitted to tribute, so that the inhabitants now cultivate their fields and their lands in peace. But you rather die of hunger without submitting to tribute. A quote from Olga. Well, the Drevlians, they said, all right, you know what, we'll give you tribute and we'll surrender, but we're scared that you're still kind of pissed about your husband and everything. So Olga responded by telling them that the killing of the messenger sent to her and the whole ordeal of the feast that night, that was enough to satisfy her revenge. All she wanted was 3 doves and 3 sparrows from each house in the city. And the Drevlians were like, fucking hell yeah, dude. Fucking give her the fucking birds. Let's get this over with. Not knowing that they had just ruined themselves. Because when Olga received her tribute of birds, she told her soldiers to tie a small piece of cloth and a little sulfur to the birds, and then lit the sulfur on fire and released all the birds at once. The birds, in turn, returned to their nests inside the roofs and the eaves of the buildings within the city of the Drevlians. And in just a matter of minutes, the entire city seemed to be on fire. There was not a house that was not consumed, and it was impossible to extinguish the flames, because all the houses caught fire at once, says a source from the primary chronicle. And as the inhabitants fled the city due to the flames, Olga and her army rounded them up, killing some, giving others as slaves to her men, forcing the rest of the survivors to pay back the tribute that Igor had come to get in the first place. Thank you for listening, and have a good one.